It's clear that there is going to be new taxes on the middle class and on small businesses, even though there were promises that that wouldn't happen. And it's also very evident that this particular health care bill, despite all the promises to the contrary, will in fact mean that there will be more unborn children who will be subjected to having their lives ended in the hideous performance of an abortion than would have been. Now, I want to be very clear about what I'm about to say, because this is not a political issue for me. Some issues are political, and I will argue with you all day long, and, truthfully, we could end up never coming to terms, and there's nothing really on the line except somebody's political ideology. But I want to say something from the depths of my heart. And I've said it so many times that I want to say it with every bit of conviction within me. For me, the issue of the sanctity of every human life is not a political decision, nor a political issue. It is a moral issue, and it goes to the heart of who we are as a civilization and as a people. Now, I know that many of you are here because you are concerned about the financial implications and the fiscal responsibility that is being completely just shred by the people of Washington. But one of the reasons that for many of us, the issue of how healthcare begins to move us more to the place in which unwilling participants, taxpayers, are going to indirectly be responsible for the ending of the human life. And the reason that's so important is because some of us truly believe with all of our hearts that on this issue, our culture will rise or fall. And let me explain why. Any culture that believes that some lives are more valuable than others, that elevates some to a point of the right to live and others forfeited that right to live, has already decided that some people are worth more than others and some people are worth less than others. Our founders put it pretty clearly. They said, in these very powerful words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And without life, there is no liberty, and there is no pursuit of happiness." But more importantly, the crux of that doctrine is in these words: all men are created equal. Now, our founders said it that way in 1776 when 56 incredibly brave men signed their signatures to that document that we now call the Declaration of Independence. It was a revolutionary statement, literally. And they understood that if this experiment in a new government didn't work out, it wasn't just high taxes they would pay. They would pay with their own blood and that of their children. They understood the stakes. They knew the consequences of failure. And they refused to accept that anything was worth more than their own liberty. Now, admittedly, they didn't get it quite right in application. It took a while before African Americans and women were fully vested with the same rights as were white men. But the principle was put in motion, that no person is worth more than another, and no person is worth less. And in 1776, that's a pretty radical statement, because it really said that your ancestry isn't what made you worth something. Not the amount of land you owned or your last name, not how much money you had or what your occupation was. It wasn't your IQ or your particular position in life. Your worth and your value as a human being came from the fact that you were a creation of the Almighty Creator God, and His insignia upon you was what gave you your value and your worth, and you were worth as much as anybody else. No one was worth more, and no one was worth less. No person had a reason to show themselves with a level of pride and arrogance and indifference toward others, because every single one of us looked at each other with a sense of equality of basic intrinsic worth and value. That, my dear friend, is the very essence of the United States of America. And that is why some of us have been able to rise up above the positions of poverty from which we started. Because we knew that no matter where we started, that's not where we had to stop. Because we had equal worth and value. No, we may not have had the ancestry. We may not have had the last name. We may not have had the bank accounts. May not have even had the IQ. But we had the opportunity because we lived in a land that believed that when God created us, He created us with equality. Now that is the essence of why today that the issue of the sanctity of human life is for me a non-negotiable. And the reason I say that is because the day that we see in the news that one person is worth less than another or more than another, just remember that once a generation tells the one coming up that there are lives that are not worth protecting, and we decide that a life can be interrupted and terminated because it represents an economic disruption or a social interference to the biological mother. Follow the logic. If we tell the generation behind us that those are factors that make it possible to determine a life not worthy to be lived and not worth as much, then one day when that generation to whom we have taught that lesson becomes old enough to be our caretakers, and my generation is old, we have already told them that when we become an economic burden to them, when we become a social interference to them, that we have now already licensed them to take our lives and to end it. The government that believes that lives at the beginning are expendable is a government that one day will tell us that lives at the end are expendable, and we cannot go there as a country and be true to who we are, that all men are created equal. It simply cannot happen in the United States of America. I ask you today to take your energy and to take your commitment and to simply do more than get angry, and to do more than make calls and email and write. All of that is important, and I think you ought to do it from now until Christmas morning. But here's what I ask of you. This means nothing if next November you forget. This means nothing if next November you forget. This means everything if from now until next November you let this Congress know that we know how to reach over and grab the handle on the ceramic bowl and push it and flush the whole thing out and fill it with fresh water. You will not forget. This time next year, packing boxes and putting their collectibles and all their memorabilia up for shipment back home, they will finally get the message. They work for us. We do not work for them. This is our government. It is our nation. It is our future. And folks, if we do not claim it, then God help us and God forgive us. Let's instead say, no matter what they try to do between now and next year, we will not forget. We will not forget, and we will flush them out and send them home. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be with you here on